Hello and welcome to the Worn and Wound podcast. My name is Blake Bettner. I'm joined in studio here in Brooklyn with our producer, Josh. Josh, hello. How you doing?
How's it going?
Nice hat.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
We have in the computer, we've got Zach Kazan. Zach, hello. Welcome.
Hey, how's it going, Blake?
Real well. And holding down the West Coast for us, there is Thomas Callara. Thomas, welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
What's happening, fellas? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So we have, there's been some news over the past week that we thought we would talk about, from LVMH stuff to Audemars Piguet stuff to the Taurus stuff. So a little bit of everything in there. Before we get to any of that, what are we wearing on our wrists today? Thomas, what do you got on?
Yeah, today I had the Jlc Reverso.
Nice.
And I have it on a brown leather strap. So yeah, that's what I got on, and I'm just finishing up the last bit of it for a review that should be live by the time this airs.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm excited about that. I know the Reverso is maybe a watch that we haven't talked a whole lot about on Worn and Wound in the past, but it's a really cool watch. It's got an interesting history, and you are going to tell us how it, what it's like in daily life, I guess, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, I guess that's the whole theme of the write-up.
Yeah.
Can you wear a dress watch for an extended period of time, or can I at least wear one, and let alone it being a Reverso? So yeah.
Tell us this: do you surf in it?
No, I haven't tried.
Okay.
I don't think.
Well, you can't just flip it over to the other side and seal it up there.
I don't think that's how that works. But maybe I might be missing something there.
Now that would be a cool Reverso, though, right? One where you flip it and close it shut, and then it like water seals
the case. Yep.
Yeah.
Might be onto something there.
They're highly water resistant Reversos, right? Like, didn't they make the Squadra? I think is the.
They've made some odd Reversos over the years.
Yeah.
I think they've ventured
They made like
into
titanium, like highly water resistant Reversos.
Yeah, there you go. I'm sure that it's just that canister that's in the middle there that that is water resistant, right? It's as long as that's sealed up, then it's fine, because it's just like a bearing thing that it slides on, I think, right? So
exactly, yeah. And I think I'm not too sure, but I believe this has like 30 meters of water resistance to it.
Oh, nice. Okay.
But yeah, it's a funky little watch, and even just you were saying that whole like me trying to figure out what to call them, inner case or calling it capsule or just trying to figure out what proper terminology to use there.
Yeah, I like that. Well, good. Yeah, I'm excited to see that. And very cool watch, and it looks great on that strap too. Zach Kazan, what are you wearing?
I'm wearing my Grand Seiko SBGA 469. I haven't taken it off since the last time we spoke on the podcast. I've been wearing it pretty much every day.
All right, and no regrets there. It's lives up to everything you had in mind for it.
No. Hashtag no regrets.
No regrets. All right.
Yeah.
Josh, you got anything on over there?
Yeah, I got my Seiko 5 back out of the shop.
Nice.
So
on that mesh strap.
Yeah.
Did you get all your watches back? You have them serviced?
Yeah, I had them all serviced, and everything's working and ticking. So
right on. Yeah. I think soon, one of these weeks, we'll have Steve on from over at Central Watch, and we'll do a whole episode on demystifying watch servicing. And he can set us straight. We can ask him all those questions. I feel like it's a realm that not enough people go into, and it's kind of like I don't know how that works, or I don't know what to do here. So anyways, keep an eye out for that sometime soon, and maybe think of some questions for him you can send in to us. I am wearing a IWC C03. This is the, I guess it's not a big pilot. It's a big pilot. Yeah, it's just
the pilot's chronograph,
the
right?
pilot's chronograph, yeah, 41 millimeters, done with the Collective. I just put the strap back on it that it came with. Thought I'd give that a try for a little while. So, what is new? We've actually it's been a pretty full week of news stuff. The LVMH stuff first. That started last week. We had some of that coverage on our site. And then I almost forgot just today, as we record this, maybe it was last night, we got news of those new Grand Seiko watches. What was it? SLHG There's a 5, something like that.
Some long reference.
These are impossible to remember. The SLGA 013 and the SLGH 009.
Okay, so that wasn't too far off. So these are, this is the 44GS case with that real kind of like broad lug design with that's got that that high beat movement, and then the other one has the spring drive movement in it. Yeah, and they've got the kind of like what do they call that pattern that's on the dial? It's kind of like a slice of wood almost.
So they say that it's inspired by like stars streaking across the night sky.
Okay.
So like their press imagery has like what looks like like you'd see like time lapse of what like a star looks like when it's like moving across the sky, and it sort of, I guess, kind of resembles the dial. I don't know. Like I'm not sold that it's that it really looks like that, but I wrote these watches up. We'll link to it in the show notes. Like I point out in the article, I don't really think that matters. Like I think that there's you either like the aesthetics of the dial or you don't. To a certain extent, like you kind of have to see beyond like what Grand Seiko or any brand who makes a dial in this sort of way like wants you to see. Like it's just it's an aesthetic thing, whether you either like it or not.
Yeah, it's an interesting look. I don't know why I thought like a diagonal cut of a piece of wood.
Yeah, it looks like black wood.
I mean, I can see that. Like it definitely,
right?
You could certainly make a case for that. Like, but that looks it looks more like a cross section of a piece of wood than like what I see when I look at the stars. Like just
I mean the star story and the micro seeds and all that stuff. It's very nice and lovely and romantic. But at the end of the day, whatever. Like it's still a beautiful dial aesthetically.
It looks, they look great. Yeah.
So I like these quite a bit. I like that blue one a lot because I think it's under 12 millimeters thin or in thickness, and it's got the same movement that is in the white birch. And my biggest problem with the white birch, of course, was that 22 millimeter lug span. This brings it down to 19. And I think Zach has a watch with the same case, so I'm gonna have to pry that off his wrist for a little bit and see what it feels like.
Like it's a pretty big deal that they got these new movements in a 44 GS case like this quickly. I think a lot of Grand Seiko collectors and fans were kind of speculating as to when these next generation movements would wind up in a heritage case or like any case besides the like the Evolution 9 style cases that they've been in so far. So this really kind of opens things up for Grand Seiko for the rest of the year and beyond when it comes to how they use these movements. Yeah,
very cool. Still a great movement, great looking movement as well. So those are on the site. We'll link to those. But moving back to earlier in the week, I guess that was this week. I was with Oris in Vail, looking at a couple of their new releases for the year. I left on Sunday and I came back on a Tuesday, so my week is like all jumbled up right now. So bear with me while I figure this out. We'll straighten it out. Before I left, I went to an LVMH preview and got to see some of the new watches. I believe this past Monday is when it officially started virtually. It's not like it was open to the public or anything like that, but that's when all the embargoes lifted. So we saw new watches from Hublot, from Tag Heuer, from Zenith, Bulgari. However, I did not see any Bulgari watches in my preview session with them. I did see watches from Hublot, Tag Heuer, and Zenith, and we put something about each of them on the site. We talked about a watch and a brand that I don't know has ever appeared on the site in such a way, and that was a Hublot. They had a Big Bang time only integral is what it was called. So. All right, I think I said it in the article, right? Hublot maybe hasn't always been to all of our tastes, maybe still isn't. That's totally fine. I was very surprised when I saw this watch and put it on my wrist how well it wore, how great it felt on the wrist, how good, frankly, as far as big bangs go, it looked on the wrist. So this is it's a 40 millimeter case, and it's very slim. I think under 11 millimeters in thickness. And then it had the full linked integrated bracelet, but they're kind of like narrow links. So there's a lot of like points of articulation. So it was very comfortable in how it wrapped around. They had a full black ceramic version, a full titanium version, and a full gold version. And I wrote about it on the site. We had it in the office there for a little bit. Thank you to Hublot for lending us one. Yeah, and I gotta say, not all bad. Maybe those guys over at Hublot get a bad rap sometimes, and sometimes maybe deserved. But what did you guys think of this watch? In the pictures, at least. Did it mean anything? Did it move you? Any thoughts on Hublot after seeing this? Zach, what about you?
So I've never quite understood like all the like vitriol that kind of gets like spewed at Hublot. I mean, like I guess I sort of understand it. Like they have a reputation as being sort of I don't know, like the culture around Hublot is like maybe like not like as like watch nerdy as
Sure.
as other brands. I don't really know how to put it. They just have like a I don't know, like the brand image just like isn't really quite in line with like a lot of like where watch enthusiasm is now. But like if you look at it from a high level, like they do a lot of really interesting things with materials, I think. The designs are like you said, like probably not to all of our tastes all the time, but like they really go for it. Like when they do, like they lean into their own style, which I think is kind of worth celebrating. Like, I mean, I haven't seen this new watch in the metal, but I take your word for it that it's like it's legitimately like a nice wearing sports watch. So
yeah, absolutely, it is, and yeah, I mean, like, look, we can't take all that stuff out on Hublot. I mean, like they're doing their thing, and like they're pushing forward in their own way. It's not like they're like recalling a back catalog. It's not like that old of a brand. I think maybe like the early 90s or something like that, those MDM watches, and the whole like fusion of a precious metal case with like a rubber strap. So it's got its own vibe, and it's still maybe not for everybody, but I think they're capable of doing some pretty cool things, some interesting things. They do have their own suite of movements that they make, the Unico movement in a few different forms. The movement that was in this, though, was not one of their in-house units. This was a movement based on the Zenith Elite 670, I believe. So obviously, it's a movement that's used throughout the LVMH stable of watches. And it's a movement that appears in some Zenith watches that have kind of a similar vibe almost, because Zenith does some things with ceramic. They've got their black open work version of the watch. So it's not entirely dissimilar to that, I would say. You called out the Bulgari in Slack the other day. That's a really good one too, in terms of like a watch from the LVMH group that you can get that's thin. Well, it's thin. It's very, very thin, right? Very thin, yeah. Especially for the price. So these weren't cheap watches. These are like, over $15,000. But I tell you what excited me about this watch. There's nothing that they're doing there, and this is what I tried to point out in the article. A lot of the stuff that they're doing now has kind of trickled down to a lot of the brands that we talk about more often, like the use of ceramics and more refined bracelets that we're starting to see now. Like, I didn't really see anything in this watch that was wholly unique to Hublot, like other than the look, of course. But I feel like what they've built here, like there's nothing stopping really any of the brands that we usually cover from making a watch that's like kind of in the ballpark of this. If they can get, it's not like there's anything super special about that Elite movement there. I mean, it's a nice movement and all that kind of stuff, but
it's thin.
It's like thin. It's thin, and they built a case like exactly around it, and that's great. So I would love to see other brands kind of go all in around a concept like this. I think now I don't know if just throwing out the words like it's a ceramic case and it's silicon this and that and it's integrated whatnot like has as much value as it did maybe like 10 years ago. Into where, okay, I see a price tag of $20,000 and, but it's titanium or it's ceramic or something like that. When we have, or carbon or something like that. And we see, brands like Christopher Ward or Formex or whoever, like using some of these, quote unquote exotic type stuff at a much more accessible price point. So anyway, so that's what was kind of like my take on it. I feel like it's a cool watch, but if you want that kind of vibe, like you've got plenty of better options out there if you don't want to spend that much money. Thomas, what did you think of this watch?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar with the brand as a whole and kind of like their history and whatnot, but I just know aesthetically it's one of those watches where you do, when I have seen it, I'm like, oh, that's a Hublot. And I guess it's more so just because they're big watches. They're big. They come on that rubber strap. And for them, for this, especially with the Big Bang integral, it's smaller. Like you said, it's more refined. It's just a different look from what I'm used to from Hublot, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think I don't see anything wrong with it. Like you said, there's potentially better options out there if you don't want to kind of spend that much on this watch. But yeah, I like it. I don't see anything wrong with it other than probably the price tag.
Yeah, the price
of the watch.
it's a lot, right? But they've got a certain brand image they got to keep. So my other issue with this watch is the name. They call it literally time only. This is maybe this is stupid. Maybe this is only like a thing that would bother a watch nerd. It's called the time only, which is a term that we explicitly use to refer to watches that are just telling the time, like hours, minutes, seconds. That's it.
Do you guys think they're trying to appeal more to the watch nerd crowd with this watch?
This feels like hey, we see you kind of a watch, but then like ascribing this. Am I reading too much into this? Does it bother you guys? It has a date on it, right? So that is a complication.
Date. It has like a fully skeletonized date wheel. That's like a prominent like kind of aesthetic feature of the watch. Like you can see the date wheel like circling the perimeter of the dial. Like it's just kind of like in your face. So it's a little ironic that they call it
the Big Bang integral date. Like, come on, that would have made a lot more sense. Okay, so I'll get off this. If let us know if that bothers you as much as it bothers me. But Hublot, come on, those are the little details that people like us are going to notice. All right, so moving on from Hublot, and they had some other cool for Hublot. They had a yellow gold. They're really kind of moving into a bunch of yellow gold stuff now. They had a yellow gold. I guess classic chronograph with like a flat black dial and 2 registers with the rubber strap and the yellow gold case. That to me is what I think of when I think of Hublot. That was not so bad. I'll say that as well. I put it on; it wasn't so bad. And then they've got their like bigger. I put one in my Instagram stories. I don't know if you saw it. This green thing. It's like
tattoo-inspired thing.
Yeah,
Big Bang, saying blue. Right.
Yeah, that thing is cool. All right, let me tell you something. All right, so Hublot gets a lot of flack from people. I got a lot of DMs in private about that. When I put it in my stories, people were like, "Yo, not gonna lie, I kind of like that watch," or "Oh, that's actually pretty cool." All said in private. I'm not gonna call anybody out, but I'm telling you, as an object, this thing is like it's rather impressive. I will say. And
I think it's awesome. Like I love that green ceramic one. So that's $27,000. I call it the Green Goblin.
The green. It looks a little bit like the Green Goblin. Yeah.
So how much is the one that you handled? Like
the one the titanium one starts at like 16.7 or 17.2, something like in that ballpark. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a fairly large delta between the two.
Yeah.
I'd pinch pennies and get the Green Goblin.
You get the Green Goblin.
If I needed to buy a Hublot for some weird reason,
you're going all in on Hublot.
That's the one I'd go for. Yeah.
I mean, it is uniquely them there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like looking at that dial, you're gonna have to like really squint to like tell the time there.
I have a cell phone, so it's fine.
Oh my gosh! All right. Let's. This is maybe we've lost all our listeners by now when you listen to the Hublot podcast. All right, let's move on. We've got Tag Heuer also had some releases. They had a new Aqua Racer with a steel bezel, and they ditched the Cyclops over the date on the crystal. Thomas, you wrote about these. Tell us a little bit about it. I think there was 2 versions.
Yeah, there was one in an automatic movement and another one in quartz. And the automatic came in 2 different colorways. One, it was in a fume type of design, one black, one blue. And the quartz one, which is kind of like the one that I lean towards, came in a solid black and a silver color. And like you said, they ditched the They ditched the Cyclops at 6 o'clock. Now they have a steel insert as opposed to the ceramic bezel. And I like it. It's in 40 millimeters. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's right.
From the
Yeah, they
Aqua
were
Racer
43,
300.
I think, right?
Right. From the Aqua Racer 300. So this one is the Aqua Racer 200. Now it's 40 millimeters. And it just looks great. In the beginning of the write-up, I had mentioned that I used to own one of these about like 10 years ago. And this was, again, one of those watches where kind of was like my foray into watches. I just thought it was a cool looking watch. It was just well made from handling it. And I get a little bit of nostalgia when I see this one. So no, it's a decent watch, and we were chatting over Slack a couple of days ago, just talking about the polished center links. So that was like really the only thing there that kind of was like a little thing for me. But yeah, it's overall it's a nice one. It's nice from Tag Heuer, and they're moving in the right direction there with the Aqua Racer.
Yeah, this was the watch that I was most compelled by at Tag Heuer. I tried both of these on, and I'm with you. I like the quartz one. The quartz one ditches the date, so it's just that kind of like, it's like a ridged, like with horizontal ridges that go across the dial, and then how the color is. It's like almost subtle, but it wears really well at 40 millimeters. And I agree, this is like a pure nostalgia. When I think of Aqua Racer in my head, this is the watch that, like, I saw them and I was like, oh, this has existed forever, right? And of course, the new one, like in my head though, that is what I pictured as an Aqua Racer. I like these quite a bit. The quartz version, it's like $1,500, $1,600, something like that. And the automatic one, I think, is around $2,500. So, I don't know. Like the brand might be worth something there, Tag Heuer, but when I think of like, okay, great diver quartz, like I'm thinking more in the $500 to $600 range, but Tag Heuer is probably not going to do that because they're Tag Heuer. But it'll be interesting to see what these do on the secondhand market. I like the watch regardless, and it's still accessible, I guess, price wise, I would say. So nice job, Tag Heuer there. Zach, do you have any thoughts on the Aqua Racer? Do you like the Aqua Racer?
I mean, I do like the Aqua Racer. I agree with you, like it kind of, and with you too, Tom. Like it definitely hits like a nostalgia, like sector of my brain when I see these watches. Like I kind of had the same reaction. I thought like this watch has like existed for a long time. It reminds me of, I guess it was the Aqua Racers, or maybe they were branded differently, but like those tags that like I would have seen like at Macy's, like 20 years ago. Like when I was like kind of first starting to like just kind of like barely get into into this stuff a little bit. And like I think it's still kind of a nice like kind of entry point if someone wants to get into like a decent Swiss brand with some heritage. You get a nice watch you can wear every single day without a problem. And they're cool. I'm partial to the blue dial. I like the blue Fume.
Right on. Yeah, it's lovely. So yeah, I mean, if you're looking at something like a Black Bay, but that's like a little out of reach price wise, I would definitely check these out. These are pretty awesome watches.
Or if you just want something like a little more like contemporary, like there's the Black Bay is very much kind of rooted in like
that kind of retro,
like a 1965.
And I think I don't know what it is to like that, like kind of like that 12-sided bezel. Like I don't know if like for most people that's nostalgia, or that's what makes it more modern. I don't know. Like it's just and I feel like that's new on that watch. I think that 12-sided bezel was new on the Aqua Racer 300, because typically it used to be like a round bezel. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's what makes it that nice balance of old and new, or if that's like, and it just seems like, have they been, like I always ask myself, like, were they doing that back in the day, 12-sided bezel?
Yeah, it's a look that's unique to it for sure. And I think they will do very well. Check those out if you haven't seen them. I think that's the kind of watch that it's easy to just kind of like skip right over because it looks so familiar and there's other like flashier things kind of around it. But then in time, you kind of like come back to it and like, oh wait, that was pretty cool. That watch is pretty cool. Yeah, it would be nice to. We'll have to try and get our hands on one of those for more of an in-depth review. I think we'll probably be in order. And then moving over to Zenith, one of the big releases that they did this week was Well, I guess they had a couple. So they had the prior Monday, they released that DeFi Revival that brought back the kind of original DeFi design. And then a week later, Monday, they showed the DeFi Skyline. This was supposed to be kind of a modern take on the DeFi. And it retains the kind of, it's like an 8-sided kind of bezel set into this case. And it's a bit bigger than the Revival, but it's got this trick movement, I guess time only, El Primero movement that beats at 36,000 VPH. So the running seconds hand over at 9 o'clock makes a full lap around that little subdial in 10 seconds. A rather frantic watch to have on your wrist and read the time, I will say, after I got some time with it. But it's cool. And the dial itself has this texture that's kind of like the Zenith star that was on the case back, made into a pattern. Zach, you wrote about these watches. What did you think of the Revival? And do you think that the Skyline is a proper modern rendition of it?
So I think the Revival was very nicely done. It's sort of, it's in line with other, Revival watches that Zenith has released over the last couple of years. It's pretty close, not exactly, the same, not an exact one-for-one remake of the original watch, but it's like, it hews fairly close, and they certainly the point was to kind of like reintroduce that like very unusual kind of like DeFi case to the public after so many years. So and I'm a fan of that stuff. Like as I've talked about many times, I'm a big Zenith fan. I love vintage Zenith. So like I love that that's like back out there kind of like, for public consumption. I wasn't like immediately blown away with the Skyline when I first saw it. Like, I'm really curious to get my hands on one at some point, and really take a closer look at it. Like mainly to see what that pattern on the dial looks like in person, and like how it plays with light and everything. I think like the case is good. The case looks very similar to the DeFi Classic, which I owned a DeFi Classic, the ceramic one. I wrote about that for the site a few years ago. And love that watch. I think the modern DeFi is a really great sports watch, very easy to wear. And this looks like it's pretty close to that in terms of in terms of case shape and size. And I think it's pretty cool what they did with the movement, kind of stripping away the chronograph functionality of this like high frequency El Primero. There's no real like functional purpose to having that seconds hand spinning around the dial so fast. It's just kind of I think it's just kind of Zenith like showing off a little bit, which is like a big part of watch manufacturing, like since the beginning of watch manufacturing. So I think that's fine. So I'm really curious to see one in person, and I'm excited that this might mean like more variations on this, on this format and this platform, and we might see additional DeFi's, limited editions. Like we saw what happened with the, with the Chronomaster over the last few years. There were just like so many cool like limited editions, and we've talked about it endlessly on the podcast and on the site. So like if that happens with the DeFi, like that could be really cool.
And like we've mentioned before, like by and large, they're all pretty good. It's easy to get fatigued on this stuff, but like when they come out with them, I think they are for the most part like pretty spot on with what they're doing. So I agree. And and I'll note that DeFi Revival has the same Elite 670 movement that Hublot does as well. I think it's around $7,000 or $8,000, something like that. The dial though on that Revival one is pretty cool. They do a hell of a smoked fume, whatever it's called, dial. It's just fantastic, and it's like gray, but it's like warm. So it's kind of between this. You know what it's like. Our crown and buckle friends make this strap in a color called greige. It's like that. It's like a greige, and so check that out. That is also on the site. I think we've got a couple of live shots in there, maybe. Too, and I'll respond. Some guy called me out in the comments for my photography. I was like, hey man, you got to see the room that I'm trying to do this in, and some of the people that are standing around and all this stuff. It's less than ideal, so sue me.
Not easy either.
Yeah, it's not easy. But we had a picture in there in the header that was meant to be kind of like down low, so I swapped them out. But the one picture that was in the header was supposed to just be focused on the dial texture. So anyway, commenter, chill. I'm sorry. I'm not the greatest photographer in the world, but you make do with what you get. So anyways, all right, let's move on to the other big news. This was kind of a surprise. That it happened just that day. We knew it was coming, but this is the 50th anniversary of a watch called the Royal Oak by a little brand, Audemars Piguet. They
Ever heard of it?
I think, yeah. Come on, it's one of those, big three, whatever you call them, the Holy Trinity, I think, right? And boy, Holy Trinity. That's Vacheron Constantin, Audemars Piguet, and what's the other one? Patek Philippe. Oh yeah,
Philippe.
Those guys. I don't know. Is that right? Should those really be the big three? I guess that's a whole other podcast discussion.
Yeah.
Right there. I'd put Lange in there, right? Why does there only need to be three? Who makes these rules?
That is a good question. I do not have the answer.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll dive into that maybe.
Internet message boards made the rules.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm sure Zach Weiss would have a thing or two to say about that too. So maybe we'll wait till he's on. We can go down that rabbit hole. Anyways, the Royal Oak. So the 15202, which we've known was going to be replaced, was replaced by the 16202, and this is a watch that looks, I'll be honest, it looks the same as the 15202, which is not a bad thing. This is a great looking watch. It kept its dimensions, still 39 millimeters and 8 millimeters and some change thick. But the original famously used the JLC 21, something like that, caliber, and Audemars Piguet put their own new movement in the watch. And the physical dimensions of the movement are a little bit bigger than the JLC movement that was in there because they put some new features in there. It's got a longer power reserve, a quick set date, and things like that. But they managed to do it without increasing the physical exterior dimensions of the watch. Is that an impressive thing? Is that something that I feel like, they did more with the movement. They made more use of the given space, right? Is that a more efficient use of space without growing the actual exterior dimensions of the case?
So couldn't the old Jumbo just have been thinner then, and and smaller? Like if they,
that stands to reason.
Using common sense.
Yeah. So the old one was just obviously an inefficient use of the interior space.
Another cell phone by AP.
Yeah. Boy, are we? So it's they still make it in steel. Obviously, I'm sure it will still be impossible to get. So, and as much as it doesn't make any difference to anybody, I think the retail price is, I don't know, $28,000, $27,000, $23,000. It doesn't really matter. It will hit the secondary market and be instantly $100,000 plus dollar watch. My biggest issue with this watch, though, is the implementation of the 50th on the rotor of the movement. This is a pretty classy brand we're talking about here. Audemars Piguet, Holy Trinity that we just discussed. This is one of the greatest sport watches, of all time, as the people say, as collectors, fancier than us say. And here we got this 50th. It's kind of like bold, italicized. What did you say, Zach? Like it's like the side, along the side of a NASCAR.
A friend of mine texted me and said it reminded him of like the numbering on like a NASCAR car. Yeah. And now I can't unsee that. So
yes, it's I think when I saw it, my Matchbox cars came to mind. Similar vein.
Definitely jersey number vibe there.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that until
jersey
just
number.
Now.
That's a good one.
Yeah. It's like I feel like I'm looking at the back of a hockey jersey, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me it looked like a Super Bowl logo, but instead of it being the Roman numerals, it's
okay. we've all been banned from the AP boutique in Manhattan. I've just found out.
I wasn't going to get an allocation anyway. Like, it's not a big deal.
Yeah. I know it's an easy watch to poke fun at. They have the one version of it is gold with this smoked gold dial that did not exist in the prior version, the 15202, with that kind of a dial. I like that watch a lot. if we're talking like gold and really fume, like that's a banger. I think. And if I was going to go gold, that'd be a nice one to do it. I think the MSRP on that one is like $70,000. So I don't know. Let's assume a couple hundred.
Yeah, if you're going to get it, you might as well get that one.
Yep, that's going to be the one. Thomas, what do you think of the Royal Oak? Do you have any feelings about the Royal Oak? And what do you think of the new one?
I've at certain points have gotten to have hands on the watch. Just as far as a sports watch with an integrated bracelet, it's its own thing, I guess, as far as handling an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. I did see that they came out with a smaller version, the 37 millimeter.
Yeah.
But it's like you said, it's just hard to see hard to understand the changes that they made. And I kind of get this feeling of, when the Explorer 2 came out and they were expecting like this big anniversary, and then it's like, everybody was expecting this big change and what's different about the watch. And I kind of feel like that's what I get from this. I see the watch and it's still the Royal Oak to me. And not that I was like expecting a huge change or, not that I had allocation, like Zach was mentioning, that I was expecting to get this watch, but that's the vibe I get from this.
Look, it's between a rock and a hard place. Like, they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. Like, if they change the dimensions of it, people will be really up in arms, right? Because it's famously it's a pretty perfect watch in dimensions on the wrist. I absolutely adore the Royal Oak. The Jumbo Royal Oak on the wrist, I think it's great. I like it a lot. If they had made it a few millimeters bigger or something like that, I think they would have had real issues on their hands. And I think I was more expecting. Are they going to change that tapisserie pattern just a little bit? Are they going to do something different with the branding? I would have put money on the branding on the dial to be like what they did on the Only Watch version, which was like the non-scripted version of the Audemars Piguet up at the top. Especially for the 50th anniversary, I thought, they're probably going to do that like old school branding, and then like the next year production, they would go back to the normal one. But this one is going to look just like that, which they did for the Only Watch one, which I thought was absolutely beautiful. But they didn't. So it looks pretty much the same. And the other disappointing thing that I found about this, so they talk about the art of making that dial that color. Ben talked about it in his article over at Hodinkee, which is very good and you should go read. And they've also have this kind of like archive article, chronicle article on their website that details all of this stuff, which is really cool. I definitely recommend checking that out if you haven't. It's a lot of words on the history of the Royal Oak, and they talk about the artistry of making this dial this color, which is perhaps inconsistent, imperfect process, but that's kind of that's the whole point of all this stuff, right? It's a mechanical watch. They are inherently less accurate and less consistent than a quartz watch. That's kind of like part of the deal here, and then we find out the new dials, they just PVD coded them to get the same color. And I don't we're used to seeing PVD coded watches in the micro brand space for, not a lot of money that are kind of accessible. So to me, hearing that about the dial, almost cheapened it a little bit. No, I want the person doing the thing by eye, and maybe it's a little imperfect or maybe it's a little inconsistent. Maybe they have a range of color. To me, that adds a real artistry to the process. And
these dials are so easy to make, they'll be able to make a bunch of them and they can meet demand.
Yeah. So, if that happens, great. And if that was the reason for it, like, more power to it. If I can walk into the boutique tomorrow and buy one at retail, then fabulous. And I think everybody should be able to, and no complaints there. But anything else, I don't know. I'm not a fan. This is just like calling at the time. Maybe this is just one of these small things because, if nobody told you that, you're not going to know the difference. But since they like detail that whole process of what it was like to get those dials like that, I'm like, oh, that's so cool. I want that. Like, that's the kind of stuff I want in my new modern watch, like it just seemed to be missing the point there a little bit. But is that just me? Did you guys feel that way?
No, I completely agree with you. I think that like I read that. I had to read it multiple times to kind of like understand like just like what is he trying to say? Like we'll link obviously to Ben's piece, and it's a really good kind of overview of the watch, but like to hear him describe like the artisanal way that these dials were made in the past. And I'm not exactly like I said, I read it a couple of times. It's not exactly clear like when they stopped doing this. Like maybe the previous generation Royal Oak was, had the same sort of like PVD process. I'm not really sure. But like it's not that's not like a good thing that like this high-end luxury watch has like a cheaper, like kind of like easier completed manufacturing process, like that they figured out a shortcut. Like I don't want a shortcut on a $30,000 watch.
Would this be like Lange figured out like, hey, we figured out how to engrave the balance cock with like lasers. So
yeah, like,
we got rid of all those people doing it by hand.
We've mastered CNC machining and like, we don't need to hand finish everything. So like, it's just as good and more consistent. But like, no, like I want people to touch it. Like I want the handwork. Like that's the whole point of a watch like this.
Yeah. And if they're a little inconsistent, so be it. That's just how it goes. Other than that though, I mean, I guess it is what it is. This will kind of set the template. And Thomas, you mentioned the 37 millimeter ones, and there was a slew of other new Royal Oaks that were released. I gotta say, I'm not a huge fan of any of the Royal Oaks outside of the jumbo, basically. The 15202, the 5402, the first one, and then the 16202. And it's the smaller pattern on the dial. Those smaller case size use that larger block pattern tapestrier on the dial, which I think looks I don't know, a lot less graceful to me. So to me, it's either that jumbo or nothing. I'm ride or die on that one. Those 38 millimeter.
Are they using the same process there?
Well, yeah. So it's, as far as I know, yeah, they put it in the machine and it's it like goes over the bumps and then it slowly carves out that pattern in the dial. Pretty cool stuff. So anyways, that's my take there. I like overall, I still think it's a great looking watch. I mean, I know that the current at the moment culture and hype around it just is what it is, and I certainly don't appreciate many aspects of that, but the watch for what it is and its heritage, I get behind that. Like, yeah, I'm on board with it. So that's my story. What did you guys think of all of these releases this week? Be sure to let us know down in the comments below. If we missed something, let us know. We've got some cool guests coming up in the coming weeks, so be sure to keep an eye out there. And we have some cool announcements coming up on the site as well. So be in touch, and thank you for listening. Until next time, take care.